Go Jackets.
All right, good afternoon, all, and welcome to WreckTalk. I want to get into some conference realignment. The Pac-12 is in shambles, and it seems like with the ACC's problems, we could solve a few with pulling some teams from the Pac-12 in the future. However, before we get into that, big channel news, guys. So this Friday at 5 o'clock, I'm going to be doing a live show. This Friday, that is the 28th at 5 p.m. I will be doing an interview with this man, Gus Morris. Gus Morris, he's just wrote a book, Saturdays in the South, that's out, I believe, for sale now. And you might recognize the name if you're a Georgia Tech fan. So he is an SEC official, a retired SEC official. He was an SEC official for, since 1990. So he began officiating Southeastern Conference in 1990 and ended in the 2020 season. So he had a 31-year SEC career, 28 postseason assignments, including 23 bowl games and five SEC championships he officiated. So very honored and thrilled to have him on the channel Friday. Now, if you're a Tech fan, this Morris name might sound familiar to you. Gus's father is George Morris, who was a 1953 graduate of Georgia Tech. He was on the 1952 national championship team. He's a U.S. Army veteran, served in Korea as a second lieutenant. He founded the Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year Award and the Dodd Trophy. He was instrumental in the relocation of the Football Hall of Fame from South Bend, Indiana to Atlanta, Georgia. Big deal in the Georgia Tech football community. So you're not going to want to miss that, guys. I can guarantee you that. Again, that's this Friday, live show. You can put your questions in the chat. We're going to be monitoring the live chat you might have for an absolute football connoisseur like George. So with that, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Now, I don't know why my Excel sheet here is looking so wonky, but let's get it up on the screen. Now, I know you can't see. All right, let me fix it. We'll just make it as big as we can. Maybe we'll move me over a little bit. We need less rec talk, more football. So let's talk about some conference realignment. So who's in the Pac-12 right now? Well, we have Washington State, Oregon State, Cal, Stanford, Utah. The hot name in college football right now with Colorado. You know WreckTalk's thoughts on Dion. I did a video on him a few months ago. He was interviewed for the Georgia Tech job. A lot of people think we're idiots for not hiring him. I get it. Maybe we will be proven idiots. Time will tell. Arizona State, and on their way out, Southern Cal and UCLA. Now, the last video I did on conference realignment did well. A lot of people said I was an idiot, like, hey, you need to know your California teams better. I'm nowhere near California, and I don't respect California enough to know anything about their football teams. So, that's that. With that, so I've spent a good month thinking about this. Who would be rivals? Who would be in what division? And I know right now the ACC did away with divisions. I get why. I don't like it. I like traditional. You have X number of teams in your division that you play every year, and you have rivals, and then you have one or two cross-conference games. The reason the ACC changed it is just because you play every team once every 4 years, a home and home. So there's advantages to that. Now, I did record a video about a few weeks ago or a month ago talking about this, and I didn't like it. I thought it sucked. Now, a lot of people probably think most of my videos suck, and that's fine. That one in particular I agreed with the audience on, and I deleted it. So we can't take every team, though. Otherwise, you're never going to play non-con games. Even with this, I can only do one non-con game. So some of this is going to be a little bit nonsensical. Here's the point of this video and what I'm thinking of. I'm a fan of college football. I want to see good college football games. And I think we're all in agreement that we don't want to see teams like Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State beat Doo-Doo State University 65-7. No one wants to see that. So this video is about, hey, what would be some interesting college football games? Let's see if I can make this bigger. We can all see. What can I say? It got bigger. Not that I've seen those commercials. So I broke them up in divisions, and I tried to split the teams we're bringing in. And I didn't do it in any particular educated way. Washington would probably be a team you want to bring in. I didn't end up bringing in. So you'd probably rather bring in Washington over Stanford and maybe Arizona State over a team like Oregon State. Though Oregon State's been kind of up, but I can only take so many teams. So you replace whatever team you want with ones that I've brought in. But we'd have two divisions, and at first I thought, well, let's do a West division and an East division. But you're not going to have enough teams to match your East teams, and you're going to have too many teams as it is. So not every team is going to get to play the teams they generally do. So it would just be something like the Big 12 has, probably. Like what did they have? The Legends and the whatever. Just call them Division 1 and 2. So I did try and keep rivals in the same division. So the way I have it is you're going to play 9 division games, 2 cross-division games. One of the cross-division games is going to be a cross-conference rival, and then you play 1 non-con game, which kind of sucks because a lot of teams have a non-con rival, which means you don't ever play another team non-conference. I get it. It's not ideal. This is just what I came up with. So Division 1, I put Oregon State, and then I tried to keep kind of the Big East alive a little bit, keeping Louisville and Miami in that division, and Pitt. So Louisville, Miami, and Pitt, we're all part of the Big East, so they get to stay together in a division and keep some of those old rivalries alive. And I tried to keep it fair. Like Oregon's a pretty good team, so I put them in with Florida State. Wake's kind of a sneaky good team. I talked about this on the Twisted Rooster show. Go check him out if you haven't. That coach probably should have been hired by someone last year. He's done a really good job. NC State's kind of a team like North Carolina that has expectations out the wazoo in the preseason and never really ends up living up to any of them. Stanford's down right now, but in the past they've been a generally good team. A lot of buzz on Colorado with Dion there. And look, time will tell with Dion. I mean, he's had a mass exodus of players out, which he's really the genesis of, and he's probably happy. I mean, they've had like 37 or 39 players. It might even be over 40 now that have transferred out. He might have trouble fielding an 85-team scholarship roster. So we'll see with that. Look, no one was deluded into thinking that Dion wasn't going to be able to recruit day one, but and recruiting is a huge part of college football. It's probably 70-80% of it, but you got to get the other 20% right too. And he's a guy that doesn't have a ton of experience, though. To be fair to him, he has surrounded himself with experienced coaches. I like the hires he's made, but I don't know. I mean, He himself doesn't have a ton of experience. We'll see, how that works out. He's going to have to play some tough teams, though. We'll see if we can get it turned around. All right, so that's that. That's Division 1. Division 2, and I hear the jokes coming that I put Georgia Tech in Division 2. Ha, I get it. But I got Georgia Tech, Clemson, Cal, Syracuse. So Clemson's really good. Cal is a team that has kind of fallen a bit, but, I mean, they're in a talent-rich state. I can't imagine that they won't, that they'll be like that forever. Syracuse is down most years. Now they gave Clemson a run for their money. They've had Clemson's number, actually, for the past 4 or 5 years. They can sneak up on you. Virginia's down right now with Elliott. Virginia Tech is another team that is begging to get back to the yesteryears and the success they had, like when they had the Vicks, like even Tyrod Taylor and those kids. Haven't been able to put it together in a minute, though. Utah is a good team. Utah's a team that if you are a good team, you don't want to play because they might just beat you. Generally always well coached, and like shake out to 8-9 wins in a lot of years. North Carolina, I mentioned, is like NC State in that they have a ton of expectation at the beginning of the year. They're not an untalented team. They usually have one of the better quarterbacks in the country, like with Howe and now with May. And then they play Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech just breaks them. I mean, it's like Sea Dog say, you can't unlose to Jeff Collins, and North Carolina did that. You know who else did that? NC State did that. How do you lose to Jeff Collins? And then our interim coach, Brent Key, beats you. I mean, I don't want to hear a single thing from a North Carolina man for a minute, but they're generally a good team, though. Duke is a team that's like Wake. Duke is another team you don't want to play if you're a really good team. That coach, if he has another year like he did last year with Duke, what'd they win, 9 games last year in his first year as a head coach at Duke? I mean, that was one of our better wins last year, was against Duke at Bobby Dodd. Excuse me. Don't sleep on Duke. Boston College is down. They're taking my Georgia Tech fanboy hat off. They're at the bottom of the conference with Tech. So you might want to switch some of these teams. It seems like this division, is better than that division, with Clemson really propping up the second division that I've laid out. But I mean, that's now. Things can change. Like Miami's been down, another team that I hate with a passion, but another team that, like Virginia Tech, is trying to get back to the yesteryears of the success that they once had. So yeah, then I laid out our conference rivals. So the way I have it is you have one rival in your division, you have one rival cross-conference, and then you'll play one team cross-conference that's not your rival. So probably also not ideal. You're only going to play each one of these teams once every, 9 years? So once every 18 years, I guess you'll have a home-and-home with them. See if I can... Well, you know what I could do if I was a thinking man? I'll just move myself. About that, just move my own head. A guy that, knew anything about electronics would probably know to do that beforehand. Still kind of tough to see. There we go. So Georgia Tech, obviously, Clemson's going to be our in-division rival. And I need to get credit for the fact that these rivalries make infinitely more sense than the ACC rivals that they came up with. Like, our rivals are like Louisville and Wake and Clemson. Louisville and Georgia Tech have zero history as far as not liking each other. That's complete nonsense. But anyway. And then I thought it'd be interesting for our cross-conference to not be someone who was a traditional ACC team, but Stanford, I kind of like the academic rivalry there. I know a lot of people don't care about academics, and that's apparent by the ignorant way in which they speak generally, but WreckTalk does care about academics. So obviously Clemson's going to pull Georgia Tech. That helps them as far as not playing a tougher team. But then we all want to see Clemson and Florida State play every year, right? So I made them their cross-conference rival. Cal, I tried to keep the Pac-12 stuff alive, so I gave them Utah in their divisional rivalry and Colorado in their cross-conference. Now, I know, look, I don't watch a ton of Pac-12 football because I don't want to stay up until 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning watching football because, I have other things to do the next morning. But I'm sure there'll be Pac-12 people in the comments saying Colorado being their rival makes no sense. I get it. I'd probably say the same thing. I'm admittedly ignorant on a lot of Pac-12 stuff. With Syracuse, I tried to keep the Big East stuff alive, so I gave them Boston College and then their cross-conference. Louisville, I think that makes sense for them. Obviously, Virginia and Virginia Tech are going to be rivals with one another. And Virginia was kind of the odd man out. As I was laying this out, there's going to be one team that just, it's not going to make sense who their cross-conference is. I gave them Oregon State. I get it. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, but someone's going to get left out. And don't be mad because right now in real life, this is just a fantasy. In real life, Georgia Tech's, rivals make 0 sense. So Virginia Tech, obviously Virginia. Then I tried to keep the Big East stuff alive with giving them Pitt. Utah gave them Cal and Oregon. I would think Utah and Oregon probably have some beef with one another, right? They're geographically located next to each other. Or somewhat next to each other. I don't know. I don't look at a map east or west of Texas, right? Who cares about anything over there? UNC, obviously Duke makes sense, and their cross-conference being NC State. And then Duke's cross-conference being Wake. We'll let all the North Carolina teams be rivals with one another, even though Georgia Tech is all of their daddies. Except maybe Wake. Boston College, we talked about them pulling Syracuse and then keeping the Big East stuff alive with Miami. All right, obviously Oregon and Oregon State are going to pull rivals in division with one another. And then gave them the cross-conference of Utah. And then Oregon State, that was the odd man out where I pulled them on Virginia Tech. Louisville has Pitt. And then Syracuse cross-conference. And Pitt, we haven't talked about them. Pitt's another sneaky good team. They won the ACC previous year. And they're a team that always has a big, beefy offensive line, and they've had some pretty decent quarterbacks as of late. And they've kind of been Tech's daddy. We have not played Pitt well, going back to even Paul. Miami and Florida State obviously have to be rivals. Florida State will beat the brakes off them every year. Miami's no good. I mean, last year Miami was preseason ranked 15th based on people's cupping of Mario Cristobal's huevos. So that didn't end up working out well for them. And I'll never forget, I've talked about it, I'll never forget about that guy trash talking me after the Miami game saying they were we're going to take care of Pitt at the end of the year. I ain't worried about it. Pitt's still scoring points on you, sir. I hope you find this channel. You write an apology and place it at my feet. Talked about Boston College and Miami, keeping the Big East stuff alive. And by the time we get down here, we've kind of talked about a lot of these, but Pitt and Louisville will be in division rivals. Pitt and Virginia Tech cross. That could be interesting. Pitt and Virginia Tech not super far from each other. Obviously, Florida State and Miami, and then Florida State Clemson cross conference will be interesting. Colorado Stanford. I don't think there's much of a rivalry there, but I thought I'd keep the Pac-12 stuff alive. Let them be rivals with each other, and then Colorado pulling Cal cross-conference. Got to let the North Carolina teams be rivals, and Wake and NC State, and then Wake pulling Duke cross-conference. We already talked about this, and then the Stanford Georgia Tech stuff. We'll have the battle of the nerds, I guess, even though Georgia Tech is, from an engineering standpoint, a superior school. Stanford is Georgia Tech West. MIT is Georgia Tech North. In fact, when I was at Georgia Tech, I had more than one professor that got their PhD from MIT, and they also called it Georgia Tech North. All right, so I thought we would look at some kind of mock schedules. So let's look at Georgia Tech. Just some interesting games. Obviously, if we were to open up with North Carolina, that'd be that'd be like playing UT Martin. Who plays UT Martin this year? Georgia. Yeah, they got a real tough schedule. The Bulldogs, they got some real tough non-con games. Who's Georgia's toughest non-con game this year? It's Georgia Tech. And I'll trash my own team. If Georgia Tech is propping up your non-con schedule, you got some problems. But yeah, we would take care of North Carolina. We would then our cross-conference Stanford could be an interesting game. Utah, Georgia Tech, Utah. Go and play Duke. Keep the ACC stuff alive with Duke, Virginia Tech, Boston College, Syracuse, Cal. I gave everyone, I think, 2 bye weeks, or I should have. I kind of messed this up. Whatever. Play our rivalry with Clemson, Virginia. Oh, yeah, I just didn't color it right. Then get a bye, play Oregon State. That could be our cross-division non-rival game, and then obviously we would beat the brakes off UGA. Totally non-controversial opinion there. Now, here's what I think would be interesting. Like, who wouldn't want to see, like, Clemson, Utah to start the year? What would the line be on that right now? Admittedly, I didn't watch much of Utah last year. I don't know what Utah's record was. I just know they're generally a sneaky good team. Then we would get Clemson, Florida State. Everyone would love to see that game. Clemson, Duke would even be interesting. They probably beat Duke handedly, but Duke's not a bad team. Clemson, Virginia Tech. If Virginia Tech was, back to prominence, that would be a more interesting game. Clemson, Syracuse has been interesting the past few years. Syracuse has given Clemson everything they've wanted. Don't know about Clemson, Cal. Clemson, Boston College. Clemson, Georgia Tech, obviously they don't beat Georgia Tech. We all know that. Georgia Tech handles them in that game, and we will beat them this year. Clemson, North Carolina, that's an interesting game. That was the ACC championship last year. Obviously, Virginia's down. Clemson probably beats the brakes off of them. But think about Clemson, ending their conference schedule with Oregon. So we would get Clemson, Oregon, Clemson, Utah, and Clemson, Florida State. And then they'd end the year with, South Carolina, the other USC. That would be a really interesting schedule to watch. And the important thing with that is, I think if that happens, that allows us to renegotiate this deal and get more money for all teams involved. Because now not only do you hit the East Coast market, you stretch to the West Coast market. I think you could get a much more favorable deal with that. So let's look at one of the Pac-12 teams. Say they open up with Colorado. Then we see Oregon, Utah. That would be a good game. Anyone Colorado plays next year is going to be an interesting game, just with the phenomenon that Dion is. Oregon, Louisville. Who knows what Louisville will be? They have a new coach. A lot of people like them. You would think that they would continue to get better. If Oregon, or if Oregon, if Miami starts playing to what they're capable, if they start playing up to the talent they have on their roster, Oregon Miami could be an interesting game. Oregon Wake would be an interesting game, you know? Like Wake almost beat what was it, double overtime they took Clemson to last year. Oregon Wake would be interesting. Oregon Stanford, I don't know. Oregon NC State would be interesting. Obviously Oregon Florida State. Like who wouldn't want to see Oregon Florida State? Oregon Pitt. Oregon Pitt would be a good game. Pitt's, you know, a good team. Then you hit your rival Oregon State, Duke, and then I don't know, give them a cross-conference Ole Miss and keep in line with this SEC non-con. But anyways, the point being, if we were to do this, I think this could save the ACC. Obviously, it's the destruction of the Pac-12, and if you're a Pac-12 fan, you hate to see it. But the only way the ACC is going to survive is if they cannibalize another conference. All of the good non-Power 5 teams are spoken for now. But yeah, like I said, if we do this, I think it allows us to renegotiate this deal, get more money for all teams involved. Now, even if we do that, I'm sure Clemson, Florida State, and even the teams coming in, like maybe Oregon, let's see, maybe even Cal with the California market would want an unequal revenue share. But the point being that we could work something out to save the ACC conference and get games that everyone is going to want to see, you know. So let me know what you think in the comments. Does this make any sense to you? How would you draw it up if you were going to, do a Pac-12 ACC merger? Do you even think that makes sense? Anyways, let me know in the comments. Again, make sure to check out the channel this Friday at 5 p.m. with Gus Morris, a 31-year SEC official with 5 SEC championship appearances under his belt. I'll talk to you guys then.